Thank you very much, Senator. On behalf of the chair, I'll recognize myself. Senator Loeffler, it's great to see you. Thank you for being willing to do this job. As you and I discussed when we met in my office, I loved serving with you. You were a terrific senator, and I'm just so glad that you're willing to do this job. It's going to be a great, great service to our country. Let me just ask you a question or two to start with about the priorities at SBA. I noticed that on day one of his administration, the last president issued an executive order directing federal agencies to adopt a broad racial equity agenda. And that was particularly a focus of SBA over the last 4 years. In fact, according to one report, by far the largest program that uses racial preferences in the federal government is the 8A program run by SBA. To be eligible for it, companies had to show various racial and other characteristics in order to access funding. A federal court in Tennessee ruled it unconstitutional. Another federal court struck down a similar requirement, also administered by SBA, the Restaurant Revitalization Fund. Here's my question to you. President Trump has now, thankfully, with his own executive order, said we're going to put a stop to these DEI programs. How do you see implementing that at SBA, and will you get SBA refocused on actually helping small businesses, no matter who the owner is, no matter where they are? There'll be no tipping of the scales in order to fit some bureaucrat's agenda. We're going to help those in need, get them stood up. We're going to execute on the mission of SBA. Tell us what you'll do about that.
Senator, thank you. Thank you, and I appreciate the time we spent in your office discussing these matters. Importantly, President Trump's EO overturns a divisive and illegal DEI program that was spread throughout the government, and particularly within the SBA. This will allow us to reduce the burdens on small business for costly implementation of needless programs. But moreover, I think the best way we can serve small businesses is making SBA lending available to all who qualify, as opposed to picking winners and losers and pitting Americans against one another. So you have my full commitment that we will root that out and make sure that it is broadly available to all who qualify.
That's a fantastic answer. I'm glad to hear it. And let me just ask you about another priority. While the last administration's Small Business Administration was focused on this DEI agenda, what it was not doing was helping people in rural areas of the country, like most of my state. In FY24, just to take one example, SBA made 103,000 loans. Only 12,000 of those went to rural businesses. That's just over 12%. Of SBA's $56 billion in capital last fiscal year, only $6 billion went to rural businesses. That's just 11%. There, you want to talk about inequity. There's an imbalance between urban and rural. And listen, we've got urban centers in my state as well. I'm all for small businesses in urban centers getting what they qualify for. But would you agree with me that our small businesses in rural America are extremely important? They are often the lifeblood of our communities, like the small town where I grew up, 4,000 people, relies on small businesses. What will you do to make sure that small business in rural America is a priority, that they're getting access to the funds that they qualify for, and we're doing everything we can to help these small businesses revitalize these communities?
Well, Senator, not only do I agree with you, I've lived it. I was raised in a family of fourth-generation small business. My nearest town had 600 people in it, and my high school had 8 small towns. Many of my fellow students' parents were small business owners. I saw the hard work that they did, the complexity of dealing with increased federal regulation even back then, and we have to ensure that small businesses in rural communities are getting the support they need. I understand it firsthand, and I know that we can do better, and we will do better, because this is an area that we can grow in terms of, you know, bringing manufacturing made in America again can come back, driven by rural America, and paying attention to people that have been forgotten about. That's what President Trump does. He remembers the forgotten men and women working so hard in this country to make it work.
Fantastic. Well, I welcome your focus on this. I look forward to working with you. Let me ask you just about fraud and waste and abuse, and you've talked about this some. I think your answers have been very heartening. You remember, in fact, you referenced it at the height of the pandemic. Congress enacted the so-called CARES Act to provide very necessary relief to millions of Americans. We also, at the same time, created, however, a special inspector general to monitor any fraud and abuse in that program. Now, for reasons that continue to elude me, the last administration, the last president, when he came to office, almost immediately limited the remit of this special inspector general, then tried to effectively defund it. And now we find out hundreds of billions of dollars were wasted or fraudulently dispersed or not properly paid back under these programs. Would you agree with me that we need the Special Inspector General, SIGPER? We need that office to be properly funded. We need it to be given the jurisdictional authority that it deserves. Senator Ernst has a bill to make sure that SIGPER gets that jurisdictional authority. Would you support that? And can you talk to us about the need to be rooting out fraud and abuse and corruption?
Absolutely, Senator. If I'm confirmed, I look forward to working with this committee to have a higher standard of accountability, to act with more urgency, to have a zero tolerance policy with regard to fraud, and to making taxpayers whole. We have to get back to that accountability and getting those funds back into taxpayer hands as soon as possible.
Very good. Thank you.